Hello, and welcome to another one of my videos in which I'm really digging in deep with a lot of the background to obsessive compulsive disorder and its many subtypes. And again, talking a little bit about how we deal with them in cognitive behavioral therapy as a way of moving forward and getting beyond OCD. One of the things that you might have heard me say in some of my other videos is that intrusive thoughts are understood to be commonplace in both clinical and non-clinical populations. And all that means is people who don't go on to develop obsessive compulsive disorder will also experience intrusive thoughts of lots of different types, it doesn't necessarily create the degree of the stress or dysfunction that we associate with the diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder. And so, what the big difference is really, the thing that kind of makes people go on to experience OCD is the meaning that they give to having had that intrusive thought. So, what you might look at in this particular model that I'm showing you right now, it's not the fact that we've had that intrusive thought. Yeah? It's this meaning there of what it means to have having had it, that then creates the sense of threat. So the fact that I've had a certain intrusive thought and then I might overestimate my personal responsibility for having had that intrusive thought. And I might also overestimate the degree of awfulness associated with that intrusive thought, then activates an anxiety response in me, which means that I start to get increasingly distressed each time I have an intrusive thought. I look out for situations in which I'm likely to have the thought again. And then I start to organize all my reality around not having those intrusive thoughts and minimizing the possible negative effects of acting as though that thought was going to come true. Okay? Now, what I'm going to take you through is a couple of examples of the types of intrusive thoughts that people in research studies have actually admitted to having had themselves. Okay, so this particular study that I'm going to show you, it's an older study now, but it's been replicated and researched many times since. It just kind of looks at the type of intrusive thoughts that people will admit to having who have who haven't got an OCD diagnosis. Okay? Now, for me, one of the first things that I often tell my clients when I am kind of giving them this information about how commonplace intrusive thoughts are in non-clinical populations is that I myself will have some intrusive thoughts from time to time. One of the big ones that I typically have is if I go to a train station and I see a little old lady just walking across the platform, and my brain, this intrusive thought will pop in and go, "Do you know what? It'd be really easy just to give it a kick right now." Okay. But it doesn't cause a great degree of distress for me. It is by no means a pleasant thought. It's not the type of thought that I really want to have all of the time. But the fact that I've had that thought doesn't necessarily lead to a lot of distress for me. I just dismiss it and treat it the same as I would any other unusual, odd, or kind of less obvious thought or less helpful thought that I might have through the course of the day. Now, we actually have it's estimated between 40,000 to 60,000 thoughts every single day. And if you think about this from your own experience, you probably dismiss a wide variety of these thoughts. Yeah? There's no way you'd be able to recall and tell me, anywhere between those 40,000 to 60,000 thoughts each day. It's just that certain ones seem to attract our attention a little bit more. Certain types of thoughts we kind of act upon, or certain types of thoughts we might, as in the case of OCD, become concerned with. So what I'm going to take you through now is just a little list of intrusive thoughts that people have admitted to having had in one of these research studies. Hey, so what I'm showing you here are the results of a study that was actually done all the way back in the early 90s, which looked at the presence of intrusive thoughts in non-clinical populations. Okay, so everything we're looking at in this particular in these results are the types of intrusive thoughts that people would admit to having had. Okay, I'll put the links to the paper in the notes accompanying this video so you can go and check it out for yourself, and also check out all the different papers that have followed it. But what I show my clients this for is just to really normalize the fact that certain types of intrusive thoughts are actually commonplace in the non-clinical population. So I want to take you through some of these examples, and really just you know reflect a little bit upon how these might fit some of your own intrusive thoughts. And just I think again just think a little bit about how that relates to your own experience. So um, as you can see on this, really just up at the top of the screen there, we're looking at these kind of ones where, people are talking about kind of swerving into traffic, driving the car straight off the road, etc. And actually, we're looking at upwards of 50% of people actually having had an intrusive thought like this. And you can imagine if this was the type of thing that would then lead people to take some form of action, then we're going to have 50% of cars off the road all the time. Do you know what I mean? So just kind of reflecting a little bit upon the fact that 50% of the people that were interviewed in this particular study admit to having had those thoughts. We haven't got loads of cars just veering off the roads anyway. So straight away there we can interpret whether intrusive thoughts actually mean what they say they mean, or whether we can reappraise what they mean for the benefit of overcoming some of this OCD. Okay? Now, in addition, we can start to move down a little bit to some of these things which this one that I talked a little bit about before, pushing a stranger in front of a train or a car. Yeah. So that's one that, as I said, I will admit to having had in the past. And we're looking at like 20% of males who've actually had an intrusive thought like that. Quite a lot less in terms of females. But again, we've still got, nearly 10% of the females having actually had an intrusive thought like that. And obviously, that's like 1/5 of all male participants interviewed admit to having had thoughts like that. And then as we progress through this, we can start to see some of these other kind of intrusive thoughts there, which include things like hate family. Okay. So just going into that, let me just, okay. So things like hate and family. Okay, so often that's a common one that people experience when we're working with harm-based OCD. Hate and family, somebody might have that intrusive thought. It doesn't mean that they're acting upon it. But again, 50% of males interviewed and 42% of females interviewed actually admit to having had thoughts like that. And then as we go a little bit further, okay, we can see there things like, again, stabbing a family member, choking a family member, all the type of thoughts which are present in harm-based OCD. And again, we've got a fifth of males admitting to choking a family member, 10% of males haven't had thoughts like that, 10% of females haven't had the thought choking a family member, and just a couple less really with regards to stabbing a family member. And again, just as we scroll down here and take a little look at some of these others, the edge to swear in a public situation is there. And again, like looking around thirds there with regards to people admit to having had thoughts like that. Going a little bit further down the list here, we've got some of those more sexualized intrusive thoughts. Here in this particular study, they were identified as sex with an unacceptable person. Okay, so whatever that means, we're looking again around the 50% mark. Females would admit to having had intrusive thoughts like that, and 63% of males will admit having had thoughts like that. This one as well is one that again I suppose I'll admit to having had a couple of times. So just kind of a compulsive urge there to kind of grab things, grab money, even shoplift, etc. Some of those thoughts there, which it might just be this kind of instant urge, okay, just grab that and walk kind of thing. And again, commonplace, it doesn't mean that people are acting on these thoughts. It simply means that this, again, it's another one of those intrusive thoughts that our mind likes to throw out there as part of that 40,000 to 60,000 thoughts each day. Again, most people will just ignore these. Most people don't actually think that these thoughts are something to be frightened of or kind of try to, avoid in any way. But again, we've got quite a lot of people who will admit to having had thoughts like that. And again, just kind of going through these, you'll probably identify these with some of the other OCD subtypes. Kissing an authority figure, we're looking around there, the 40s, 30s, exposing myself, acting against the sexual preference is a common one in HOCD. Going down here, we've got contamination-based OCD kind of stuff, catching sexually transmitted disease, contamination from doors, contamination, etc. and then passing some of this stuff on as well. Okay, so again, all of these numbers here are just kind of indicating and kind of showing us there that in this non-clinical population, all of these people that were interviewed, we still got quite an abundance of intrusive thoughts being present in this particular population. Okay, so that's just a whistle stop tour, really, just a little bit of information there about the normality of having intrusive thoughts across the non-clinical population. If you're interested in this video and if you're interested in finding out more about obsessive compulsive disorder, CBT and exposure response for obsessive compulsive disorder, then subscribe and follow some more of the videos that I've been creating for this. And if you want to connect with me at my website, www.accesscbt.co.uk, then I look forward to interacting with you from there. Take it easy.